You do not do that. You got to be locked in, and you and your coaches and your scouts, when you set that board and it locks in, you better all be on the same page, man.
Speaking of, by the way, Cap, the Super Bowl, AI Jack found a story from CBS Sports, and it's talking about how the Kansas City Chiefs were built. It's called Super Bowl 2025, how the Chiefs were able to remake their entire secondary with a single NFL draft class. Cap, I hope that the Chicago Bears can be able to hit home runs in the draft and free agency to rebuild this thing. I know there's no quick fixes. I know that in this world we're in, everyone wants a quick fix. They want to be able to have it now. But with Ryan Poles in the position that he's in right now, he knows that he's got to get to work. Sure, he might have more time to be able to get this done under this new regime with Ben Johnson, but the urgency should be there to be able to get out of the basement of the NFC North.
Yeah, and I know Sylvie's talked about this. You and I have talked about this, about could you stomach spending your entire draft class on just fixing your O-line?
No.
I can't do that. Are there other holes? You need to get another safety that can play in case Brisker's concussion issues resurface. Mm-hmm. It's not like his first concussion ever. So you've got to handle that. You've got to upgrade your defensive line. Andrew Billings is coming back from a torn pec, and he's a really good football player, but you need a youthful injection of a 3 technique or somebody that can play inside, unless Yerk can be, what's the name of the movie character that ages in reverse?
Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button. Les Yerk can become Benjamin Button. Mm-hmm. Mason Graham, who I know Shay likes a lot, would be a really interesting guy from Michigan. But it's not like you got 9 first-round picks here.
True. But, Jack, what you laid out here is interesting because what the Chiefs did is something unusual. I know that for some there's some Chiefs fatigue. You don't want them to win the championship, but here's the thing. Don't be mad at Patrick Mahomes. Don't be mad at Xavier Worthy. Don't be mad at the Chiefs skill position players. You want to be mad at someone, be mad at the front office because they do their job so well. What you laid out here is that the Chiefs threw almost all of their draft capital at the problem of their secondary cap. Kansas City had 10 draft picks in 2022 and used 5 of them on defensive backs. You got Trent McDuffie. You got Brian
He's
Cook.
a hell of a player.
You have Joshua Williams. You have Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson. So they were able to do all of that. When you were making an entire position group in one offseason, that means that there's a sense of pressure to be able to get it done. And so, again, you want to spread the wealth on your draft and free agency, sure. But you know that the Bears need to be able to have the protection for Caleb Williams. You know that you need to have more of a pass rush than what you had. So I think that that's a central focus for me because it seems obvious. I mean, there might be a wide receiver that he likes, that Poles likes in the draft. Like, I got to have – do you really need him? Do you really need that wide receiver at that particular time in the draft? Or do you want to take care of something that is lingering, that is a flashing red light on your team, like the offensive defensive line? And the Chiefs did what was obvious. We need to be better in the secondary, and they put so much draft capital at it.
Yeah, the one thing I would tell you is I've always believed, and I guess having done that for a job for a while, that with some exception, you usually only take the best player on your board, period. Now, if the best player on the board at 10 is a quarterback, you're either trading out of the pick or you're going to not do that because you have Caleb. But if you tell me, while we're picking at 10 and the left tackle that's there is clearly the best player on the board, but I got to get myself a defensive tackle here, and I got him rated like number 22, you don't do that.
Jack?
Yeah, I agree with you, Cap, but I think to some degree, if the 10th guy on your board is a wide receiver and you still need that lineman, and you don't think that lineman who you have 15 on your board is going to be their next pick, you have to jump and take the lineman at this point. You have to focus
Depends how different you have them
position.
rated. If you have one all the way there and then you go, there's the guy I need. No. Then you trade down. You don't overdraft dramatically. If you tell me you have one guy at 12 and one at 10, it's not that big. But if you tell me that the lineman you need is ranked 24th on your board and you're picking 10th, and the guy who's sitting there at 10 is, well, he's a really good player. He's the 10th guy on my board. It fits. You do not either trade down and get your lineman that you want. You don't take the guy that's 20 spots worse. You
Better
don't.
make sure you get that lineman then, because they need to fix this and they need to focus in on that position group. The other thing from this
Agreed.
article that gave me hope is after the 2021 Super Bowl, remember when the Buccaneers crushed Patrick Mahomes in the pocket and the Chiefs needed a new offensive line? They brought in 4 new starting offensive linemen for the next season through the draft and free agency. That gives me a little bit of hope that the Bears can also do something similar, bring in 4 or 5 new guys, and it will be successful because the Chiefs were in doing that the very next season.
I think it's very clear, Jack, what you're saying, because you don't want to outdumb the room. I think that the way that Ryan Poles has been drafting, you could be able to make some changes there, the way you've been going about it. You drafted Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams and said, we're good. We're going to get the best punter that's available. That's fine. But the rest of your draft looked as if you have been in the playoffs the last 5 or 6 years. Amagaje. We think Booker's a good athlete. You need to be able to look at it and understand that whether Justin Fields is the quarterback or Caleb Williams is the quarterback, those guys need protection. Look at the teams that are in the upper echelon of this National Football League. You know what they have in common? They've got great lines. And I know that you don't build it overnight, but my God, you've got to start someplace. If you're just going to go, we like Genty at running back at 10 because that's the best value on our board. Okay, so that does not help you as far as what your defensive line's got to do to get after the quarterback. It does not help you for the protection of Caleb Williams. You got to be smart about this thing. But ultimately, as I've been saying to Cap a million times now since the end of the season, you've got to be able to get the right guys, but also develop that talent too. Is this an organization now with this head coaching staff under Ben Johnson that can develop talent? It's one thing to say, you know what, I like that David Kaplan. I think that this guy can make a difference. Can you, yeah, that's fine. He was great in college. Can you develop him to where you want him to? That's a big thing. It's something that we don't talk enough about, Cap, but we are going to start to do that around here when it comes to the draft, because it's one thing to say, I love that player. I love that player because you saw him in college or you read about him. But can you as an organization develop that guy? And that's been the problem around here for a while.
Well, the other thing is people get so caught up at the combine. He ran a 4.36. He benched 225 7,000 times. Mm-hmm. We can make a player out of him. Yeah? Are you sure about that? You sure he's got the mentality to be a football player? Because like I was talking to a former player who's retired for a decade, and he said, dude, I'm not the strongest. I was not the fastest, but guess what? I'd play through things that would make other people puke. Mm-hmm. It was just a gift I was given. I could channel my emotions through the pain I was in, and I stayed out there and kept playing when I probably shouldn't have been out there. But he said that's what my team needed me to do. He said you get other guys given the gift of speed and strength and size, but when the game's on the line, do you have the grit that they need? No.
See? And you got to know who that is when you acquire them. And by the way, when you go to that evaluation, you may not know the 100%, but can you coach that in them the way you want them to play for your system, the way you want to play?
Correct.
That's the thing, Cap.
Correct.
We've seen a lot of guys, that's supposed to be at the top of their game, and they fall short because, A, you didn't have the infrastructure to coach them up, or B, that guy didn't have the intestinal fortitude to be able to get that job done.
Well, the other thing is there are certain coaches that are able to put an arm around you, and you're the kind of player that you don't want someone screaming and telling you how worthless you are. And there are other guys, they foam at the mouth when you do that. I'm going to show you. You got to be with the right coach in the right system. There's so much that goes into it.
Somehow, some way, I keep showing up for work, even though Cap keeps telling me how worthless I am. So,
you're worth billions.
I keep showing up anyway, Cap.
He's the greatest.
Who is?
That'd be you.
Oh no, you know what?
I hitched my wagon to your star.
Oh
kid.
yeah, I'm sure. Yes,
that's it.
You're 5'9" star. You attach it to.
A little closer to 5'10".
You're getting taller by the hour. He's 5'10" and he's 40 years old,
that's
folks.
It. I'll be in my 30s by the end of the day.
Coming up, the Kap and J Hood cut of the day on Chicago's Home for